Hi, I'm Kylian, and I am making you this little video before you come to my class that you've booked in for. We do this lovely process toward the beginning of each class, and I would just like you to watch the video before you come to the class so that I don't have to teach the process. Many people have been coming to many classes, and so they've watched me teach it many hundreds of times. So what we do is we take a ball, and it's just kind of, it's quite deflated. Those of you with any kind of chronic pain or conditions in the spine, or especially sacroiliac joint issues, instability in and around the pelvis, I just encourage you to keep the ball quite deflated so you can have more air in it the more, mobile and stable that you are. And what we do is we just basically lay down on the floor in a version of constructive rest, but the feet are wider, and then we begin by placing the ball directly under the sacrum, which is just right here. And then take the feet wide, take the arms wide, and just give yourself permission to sort of see how that shows up. How does that feel? So for some, it's like, oh, I love it. It feels really soft and it feels really fun and playful. And for others, it'll just bring up a little sense of, it feels a bit unstable, not sure. So just noticing that. It's different for each person. And then I want you to take your attention to the tip of the tail and just begin to make tiny circles through the tail. And then, figure eights. So we're just kind of looking to initiate some movement from the base of the spine and being curious about how it travels or not up the spine. And in time, just give yourself permission to make a departure from the spirals and the figure eights and just play. Let it be quite organic. And yeah, I just invite you to watch, how the movement travels and if it seems to get stuck somewhere. Yeah, and I'm just going to do a demonstration where, some people get on the ball and they do these really big movements. Just remembering what I started with, if you have some chronic stuff going on in your body, I just really encourage you, and even perhaps for the first few times, just to keep the movement quite small. So you can probably see that I'm making it a bit bigger anyway, so you can see it on the video. And then every few minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to gently roll to the side and move the ball up, kind of like, a handstand. So now it's in the middle of the lower back. And again, just resting down. I don't have to hold myself up, so when I move the ball up, I can let my pelvis be heavy on the floor. And now, instead of initiating the movement from the tip of the tail, I'm looking to move or be moved from the part of the spine that is resting on the ball. So imagining these vertebrae that are below, behind my belly button. And it's almost like playing the keys of a piano. So the movement still travels up and down, hopefully, if there's a good sort of connection happening, but it's not coming from the tail any longer. And again, we're just kind of noticing how that is. So what I see all the time is that there's often a lot of movement and freedom through the hips and pelvis, and it gets stuck somewhere, like where the ribs are is a good one. That's where, our upper psoas is, and our diaphragm, and it's just below the heart area, and so there's often a lot of armoring, protecting or holding. And so what we can see, and I'm going to make this move really big, is we can see this, this big radical movement in the lower part of the spine, and then as you can see that there's absolutely no movement from here up, and I'm doing that on purpose. I've locked myself down, and then if I let it go, you can see that actually, even though I'm moving from here, it literally kind of ripples right up through the whole spine, and my head actually moves on the floor, and I'm not making my head move. It's literally being moved by the spine and the fluids. Hello, pussy. My cat's in here, he's curious. Same thing. So, moving up to thoracic, we'll go a little bit slower in the class. We're not in any rush to get anywhere. When you get behind the heart, it's often a big one for people. So, often that's the area that we've hardened somewhat to life. And so just noticing what that's like, I really love it generally, just to go nice and gentle. So again, this idea of, initiating the movement from the part of the spine that's resting on the ball. So you can see where the ball is. For me, it's very much, thoracic area. And so just allowing a dance, if you like, in and around the spine from that place. And, it still travels right down into the pelvis, the feet, up through the neck, into the head. And I kind of recommend that your first time, you just leave the arms on the floor. They're kind of a bit of an anchor, and it helps you balance. It helps you to kind of, get acclimatized with this process. And then after you've been a few times, you can start to kind of just let the arms float up. And you'll see that you may see, I'm not sure if it's showing up in the video, but I get a whole lot more range of movement. And what we're really doing is we're creating mobility and hydration really through the whole spine. So and just keeping the arms and the joints soft, let them kind of be floating. So the image of seaweed in the currents of the ocean is a nice one, rather than strong sort of dancey arms. Yeah. And if you're feeling quite vulnerable, it can be really nice just to let the arms drape across, because this is quite sort of it's quite a courageous position to be in, very open. You can just drape the arms across. I don't recommend that you hold, because it tends to go against what we're looking for. But just yeah, it's so lovely, hey. And then we'll finish. You can do behind the head, the neck, little movements, and then finishing behind the head. And so just keeping the movements that you explore here quite small. A lot of people tend to overuse and misuse the neck. So just keeping the movements really small. So, this idea of keeping it very small and very slow. So people tend to get on the ball and move at a similar pace as what they move through their lives. And what I really encourage is that we give ourselves full permission to slow right down. So if your pace is, to come onto the ball and kind of just jiggle around like this, da-da-da-da-da, that can be nice. But what happens if you actually just, slow that down, like halve it and then halve it again. Just really let yourself have it, right? So this pace that we've become accustomed to is primarily the cause of what's happening for a lot of people in the nervous system. So this work is designed to, I'm just going to roll and work towards you a little. This work is really designed to hydrate the tissue and just to kind of cultivate juiciness, to cultivate, fluidity, not just in the body, but, adaptability, flexibility in our attitudes and in the way that we sort of show up in our lives. And it's really beautiful. And it takes us, the reason I do it in all of my classes is that it takes us quite instantly into a beautiful parasympathetic state. So, yeah. Oh, you can't see my cat, but he's right here. Let me show. Yeah, cute. Yeah, he likes it too. He's my teacher. So, that's my little lesson for you that I've spontaneously decided to make at this very early wee hour in the morning, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. So yeah, come to the class. Make sure you watch that video, and at least once. And it just saves, you know, quite a good chunk of time for the class. We can just like get on the balls and dive in and explore the fluid body. It's very potent work. Okay, thanks for watching.